from ALH. Welcome to my podcast.
Cheers, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, mate, thanks for coming over. It's been a hell of a day.
Yeah.
It's at the moment 7:45 on a Thursday morning. You made me come around to your... Well, you didn't make me. You suggested I come around to your house at 4:30.
Yeah, we had two options, and if you didn't pick that one, I was going to be pretty disappointed. So happy you picked that one.
So that was option one, which was the harder option of the two. So what's the morning entailed?
So 4:30, you came at mine. You're early. You're on time, which is always good. We jumped in the ice bath for a few minutes each, and then went out to HQ, did a little session, had a little sauna, had a coffee, and here we are.
It's only 7:45.
Yeah.
And this is like an average morning for you.
Yeah, when I'm in Auckland. Yep.
Yeah. So you wanted to give me an insight into what an average morning for you. So you just went putting it on dick swinging. This was
No. Yeah. Hooking into it. It's routine's important for me, right? I like, especially when I'm here in Auckland. It's probably the only time I can get a sense that I'm in control of my time and kind of using it to the best of my ability, and getting a sense of kind of control of that time's a good thing.
Oh, no, I loved it. And I was more than happy to do it, because if you're going to give me time to go on my podcast, it's interesting to get more of an insight into who you are before we sit down to do it. I was last night when I was researching you, I was trying to think how do we know each other through Sarah Tetro? Sarah Tetro is a good friend of mine.
Sarah Fyfe now, Mother Fyfe, that's what I call her. Yep. So I was about to do my first marathon with my brother Banjo, and I said, geez, what do? She goes, message Dom, he's done hundreds. So that's when I flinged off a DM and sent you a message. I said, quick fight. I was actually at the start line about to run, and I think she sent you a photo, and I was like, quick 5 tips, man. You're like, you only run your first marathon once. And I was like,
enjoy
that's
it.
a pretty good tip.
Yeah, well, what else could I say? Too late to train.
Yeah.
Actually, I got a voice note for her. She's in London at the moment.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Bluetooth. Hang on. Just turn the Bluetooth off.
One way to motivate Izzy is to tell him he can't do something. Like, you'll never be the CEO of a big company, that kind of thing. Not that I've ever met a human who needs less motivating than he does. He's got enough drive for everyone.
Yeah, fair call.
Yeah, that's probably a perfect description.
I did quite a bit of research on you. You're a curious guy, so I feel like there's two trains of thought. There's people, there's like, your haters that you can use as motivators, like negativity like that you can use as fuel. But then on the other hand, Rob Fyfe said to you once, this company's worth like 30 million a year or whatever, and you weren't thinking that big. So you're like, well, if he says it, then I can do it. So it's like you just find positivity from everywhere.
Look, dude, every day, first and foremost, every day you can wake up and move your body and do something you want to do, and get out of bed's a good day. And it's just about kind of being optimistic and positive on things that happen throughout it. So, I latch on to things, and there's probably a few comments a year that I'm like, and I'll just, really hone in and hyper focus on achieving that and looking forward to that. So I'm always kind of open ears for one of those comments which come around every few months, and I'll fixate on it.
Yeah. Another thing I found quite weird this morning, I'd heard this about you, and I thought this is something we'd have in common. If I find a song I love, I can listen to it on repeat.
Yep.
I'll listen to it over and over again. But you, like when we were in the ice bath on your deck at home, we had this, and it wasn't a great song. It's just a beat.
It's the weekly beat, man. Yeah, Panic Room.
Yeah, not even it's not going to be a classic. It's not a timeless. So you're playing on that on Bluetooth in your home. Then for the car ride, 20-minute car ride to your ALH headquarters, we had it there. Then you put it on Bluetooth while we were doing a workout. Then it was playing while we were in the sauna. Then on the way back into town.
Yeah.
So probably heard that Panic Room song, which is, again, nothing song, maybe 30 times this morning.
Yeah. Well, it's consistency for me, right? It just kind of helps me almost anchor point back into whatever I'm thinking that day. So.
Yeah, but I've also heard you talk about the importance of time, and in particular a thing called compounding time, which I'm familiar with. Wouldn't that time be better spent listening to podcasts, which can make you better?
Well, Hey, I'm on a flight tonight, so I'll listen to a couple of the Dom Harvey ones. All right.
Okay, all right. I feel like in the Izzy Whitley story, there's sort of 3 chapters. There's the early years, the childhood, the foundation. Then there's the adversity, which is a very, very short but a very significant chapter over a couple of years in your life.
Yep.
And then there's the beginning of an entrepreneur, which I feel like you're still in that chapter now.
Just getting out of neutral.
Yeah.
In
So
that chapter.
I feel like we start with the current chapter, the entrepreneur chapter, and then we'll go right back to chapter 1 and chapter 2. Okay. So ALH. Aotearoa Labour Hire. Was Auckland Labour Hire, now it's Aotearoa Labour Hire.
Yep.
Branches all around the country. You're 29 now?
Yep.
You started this business at the age of
21.
with $500.
Yep.
So what do you do? When you start, as someone that's never started a business, where does $500 go?
It went into the incorporation fee. It went into going and paying the upfront cost for a phone plan, and it paid for my first Facebook paid advert on our Facebook page. So it was going pretty quick. 500 doesn't go too far.
That's nothing. So, so actually, for anyone that doesn't know, what is Auckland Aotearoa Labour Hire?
So we're a temporary and a permanent staffing solution to any range of businesses that are just needing some support in their internal staff, but kind of bring it in. I like to say it's a tap on and off service, but sometimes the people need to tap on for longer. They're not. So we just love coming in, injecting some of our culture in through the people that we put in and helping service those needs.
And this has dominated your 20s and you've grown it into a behemoth. And I know you'd still say you're in the startup phase potentially.
Yeah. In my opinion, for where we're going to get to, then yeah.
Yeah. So those early years where you have $500 and you pump that into starting up the company with a Facebook ad, how do you survive? Like, what do you do?
It's funny. Like, I look back and I think, for me, even at 21 on $500, I was on StudyLink at the time. I was still living the best life I'd ever lived. So it's not like my life ever had to scale back to start this business. And I look back and I think each year I've never overextended my lifestyle that if I ever had to pull it back, then I could pull it back. So whilst I can look back and be like, how did I do that? That was great for me. That 21, I was living better than I was when I was 20. When I was 20, I was living better than I was when I was 19. So my life only got better. And you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know what it was like to live in a better environment or surroundings than what I did. So I was fine. I was buzzing. It's not till now I look back and I think that might be a bit tricky to dial back into again.
Were you making money from day one, or were you just surviving on that StudyLink?
Dude, I didn't pay myself for 3 years.
Right.
The first salary I paid myself was in year 4, and that was $37,500. And for me, that felt great.
So how are you scraping by in those early years?
Well, I was studying at the time, but I'd still go and do labouring for ALH, and I'd pay myself for whatever work I'd do on site, but I wouldn't take myself any money out of the pot that I was trying to grow to continue pushing.
So what keeps you? So you're a driven guy. So before that, you were a very good footballer.
Oh, I wouldn't say very good, but yeah.
You were devoted and you're hardworking.
Yeah.
So you're in this ALH thing for a few years. I suppose you're seeing some sort of growth or some sort of green roots, whatever you want to call it. But what keeps you from getting bored and thinking, nah, I got to move on to something else?
Like, that's actually a relatively common question because it took a long time before I started to feel any tangible or physical or visible results in the business, especially in the way I was living. But, I've never done this for a dollar figure. I've always done it for the challenge that comes with it, and I think that's what always excited me. I was constantly being exposed out of my comfort zone and having to learn on the go how I can resolve this problem, how I can do better. So that constant push was addictive, and it still is. Can't help myself.
So can you remember the very first one in the early days? Like
Yeah.
The first client, first paycheck, first whatever?
Yeah, it was a landscaping one. And I never forget it. I was like, oh, this is great. And I kind of said to myself, I just need to get 5 to 10 people out on site, and then I can do that for a year, and then I'll decide what I want to do next in life. Because for me, I wanted to be in a suit and kind of work in the CBD and stuff like that. I'd never experienced that, right? Like, I'm from a family of tradesmen. So kind of no one in our family ever went to work in a suit, and I thought I just want to change it. And for me, that was a sense of a physical kind of appreciation that you're doing something different. I can think of even worse than going to work in a suit any day. This is me dressed up. So so yeah, that changed pretty quickly. But the constant challenge that I've been provided with from ALH and some of the other businesses gets me out of bed every day, and I love doing what I do.
So in those early days, I've heard stories about you just like eating noodles.
Yeah. Maggie chicken soup cup noodles.
Is that factual or is that adding?
It's
GSC
factual,
to the
man.
story?
And I still have a couple of Maggie soup cup noodles in my cupboard at home because they're just a great little fixer. But that's all I could afford, like at that time, right? It was like, and then I just get big, like 24 backs of Coca-Cola, and that was kind of my thing. So. But
So noodles for like breakfast, lunch, dinner.
And dinner, yeah. And, you'd go out for the odd client thing where you'd kind of get some food or whatever, and I'd possibly duck into Benji's family home and grab some of their dinner. But I'm pretty independent dude. But again, for me, it wasn't like my lifestyle was ever scaling back. It's not like we ever had great cupboards full of food at home or an amazing fridge full of food. It was kind of like, just how can I get by,
Yeah.
What's 91 petrol like compared to 98?
Yeah, and so when did Rob Fyfe come? Rob Fyfe, by the way, prominent New Zealand businessman. He was the CEO of Air New Zealand for a while. Was he the boss of like ANZ or BNZ, one of the banks?
One of the banks.
Yeah, and then during the pandemic, he was called by Jacinda Ardern to be like part of the Brains Trust.
Yeah.
Down in Wellington. So he's very, very successful, very knowledgeable. Now married to Sarah Tetro, Sarah Fyfe, as you said. When did you first meet him? How did he come into the picture? I'm guessing that was a turning point in the business.
Met him through a mutual friend probably 5 years ago. Actually, I would have met him probably 6 or 7 years ago, and we just got along really well, and we kind of just grew a bit of a relationship and a bond. Sarah's really easy to get along with person. And one thing led to another, and ended up picking his brains about work and stuff. And then we went on the Milford track walk actually together, and that was probably for me the most inspiring week of my life. That for me was the week I didn't know I needed. Well, not that I didn't know I needed, but the week that I if I could go back and think about it and pinpoint where the ambition really got ignited, it was a week with Rob's and Sarah's close friends, and that was just like, whoa, like he was sharing some of the war stories and stuff of some of his career, and I was like, I want to be able to have those stories and go on a walk with a kid at 23 and give him some fuel and the thing. So
what sort of war stories?
Just
buying Boeings?
Yeah, a bit of that. There's a bit of the Airbus, but it was there's all sorts of stuff that was just fascinating for me. There's some of the numbers and the transactions that he was doing on behalf of Air New Zealand, whatever. Those are just numbers I'd never heard before. My uncle late when I was growing up, I'll never forget, he was on $144,000. And he was the biggest earner I'd ever met, right, in Gisborne. And I looked at him like he was Jeff Bezos, didn't he? But that's what I didn't know, right? And he was really inspiring and motivating for me at that point. But the great thing about life and relationships, you kind of can meet people throughout that continuously keep fueling your fire if you're looking, not that you go out looking for it, but it doesn't take long to kind of naturally align with some of those people. You're like, oh, wow. Hold on, here you go. But those are the things.
Yeah, it was like the analogy that I like to use that I was telling you before. I feel like it's like climbing a tree. Like you reach for the next branch, and then you reach, and I suppose there's some people their branch will be 144,000 a year, and when they get there, they're like, no, I'm good.
Yeah,
this is my branch. This is my ceiling.
Yeah.
But if you've got that growth mindset, you're going to keep looking for that next branch or that next taller tree, whatever it happens to be. So Rob, yeah, it's interesting. So your father passed away. You started this business. You're like 3-4 years into the business before you met Rob Fyfe. So he's like a business partner now, business mentor.
Yep.
Father figure as well?
Yeah, look, Dad, 9 years today, right, since Dad passed away. And I think I'm incredibly blessed to have someone like a Rob that I can spend enough time in and around their family home where I can kind of unintentionally get that kind of, I guess, he's a phenomenal bloke, right, personally and professionally. So it is a real blessing. He's incredibly respectful, really kind, caring guy, and I've never been around a bloke like that. So it's been cool to learn in a few areas of life off him.
Have you had a falling out, like where you had a tough talk and then you don't talk for a couple of days, couple of weeks?
What people don't realise is I've never had a falling out with Rob. Rob could call me anything and I'd walk away, right? And that, if you know me well, that's not like me. I'm kind of always pretty willing for a fight, but I've got so much respect for him. I've definitely had a few friggin', whacks from him. I've probably had dozens and dozens of whacks, but every day's a new day with Rob. And that's the one thing that we've not ever had that conversation, but that's just what we know. You can say one thing and then it is what it is the next day.
Yeah, so you say whacks, so verbal whacks.
Yeah, verbal whacks. He's not actually punching. There's probably been times he's wanted to physically whack me. There's probably been him and Sarah. So there's probably been dozens of times he's probably thought, geez, he could probably do with one here. But no, verbal whacks.
Any of these whacks spring to mind? Any that stand out as being significant?
Oh, yeah. I probably one to do with work. We'd kind of, as ALH was growing, I financially am pretty comfortable in that area in business. Have learnt to become more comfortable. I'd made a mistake on not accruing for certain invoices. So basically, I'd told him that we'd outperformed the 3-month period than what we actually had. We ended up basically making break even over this 3-month period when I thought, we've made all this money, but I hadn't accounted for these invoices. And to my defense, I thought that I could blame the other guy, the guy that we had in the position at the moment. I worked in there and I never forget just doing hot laps up and down Rob and Sarah's driveway. Because I said to Rob, mate, I need to come and talk to you. I need to own something here. And I'm gassing myself up. I'm like, mate, you'll be fine. Get in there. He's going to be really accommodating. He's going to see where you're coming from. Kind of within a minute, I sit down, I'm shaking. And Rob's kind of got this cold look that he can turn on really well, and that's when you know it's not going to be the conversation you're anticipating it was going to be. And it scared the shit out of me. And I went up there, I was like, Rob, this is kind of this happened, and he should have been doing this. And Rob just straight, don't try and blame us on this. This is a you problem. This is your business. You're not close enough to it. You've got too detached from it. I was just sitting there it's never, the thing is with the works I've had, it's never like an attack on me personally, but it's so direct, and you're like, it's almost like, and it's just so to the point. Instead of using 8 sentences, he'll use 2. So it's kind of constantly doing those things. Perception's been a big learning stuff for me, right? The first few years, you kind of, especially from 21 to 24, there's definitely times I probably thought I was a bit cooler than what I was, and they were pretty quick to be like, stay in your lane.
What do you mean?
You're not, just little things. Like if I was ever, if I was wearing a shirt that was probably a little bit too nice for me to wear or something like that, they'd be like, what are you wearing that for? You shouldn't be wearing that. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of always actually looking out for me and making sure I'm not looking like a dickhead, because perception is a big thing, and I really focus on it. And there's just many touch points where it was kind of like, there's been that many that I can't, again, it's funny. It was Toby's 21st the other weekend. Someone said to me, does anyone actually ever tell you off? Don't kind of report into family or whatever. And then I went back and I said that to Sarah and Rob. I said, just got asked if you guys have ever told me off before. And they both hysterically started laughing. They're like, geez, if they heard half of them, they'd be in fits of laughter. So. Yeah,
Rob Fyfe is the chairman of ALH now.
And Fit Out, the other business company.
Yeah. Yep. I'm guessing a lot of, I don't know, I'm purely speculating here because I know nothing about anything. But I'm guessing a chairman job, a chairman role or chairman position is like cracking the whip and getting the CEO thirstier and hungrier. But with Rob, is it more like holding the reins, trying to hold you back?
Yeah, that's what that's probably
like an angry dog on a lead.
That's probably his description. He's kind of like, whoa, he's just trying to kind of hang on to the tail, right? And I'm just trying to go full pace. And, there's definitely decisions that if he didn't influence me not to make, the business would be in a trickier spot for sure. So it's, I guess the chairman is the mentor and helps direct the CEO and support him.
Yeah. So we're recording this towards the tail end of 2023. What's your revenue for this year for ALH?
in this calendar year, we'll probably come in and around the mid 40s. So we're going to go for 50. We probably might get early 40s. But you know, it's been a challenging year. The economy's turned pretty quick. It's the market in Auckland that we found the trickiest. The opening of the regions that we have, that's been phenomenal for us, and that's actually been a really key foundation for this business to keep pushing. So it doesn't take much things to turn to kind of start to have to reevaluate where you sit and redirect. But all in all, we in and amongst the economy and the things that have happened, we're friggin' excited for next year and ready to go.
I've heard you in some other podcasts talk about your goal is to get to like 100 million revenue. So you're at 40 million for this year. The goal is to get to 100. What does that mean exactly for someone that knows shit about business?
Look, 100 mil's not the goal anymore. We want to go bigger. I think we can. We're opening up in Brisbane in February, which is going to be awesome, and that's a whole other market that we're looking forward to getting into.
Australia labour hire.
Perfect. Big fluke. Big fluke.
Where else can we go? Africa labour hire?
Yeah. Asia, anywhere.
Australia.
Anywhere labour hire. It's perfect. So, like, what does it mean to someone? Look, it's strictly a sales metric. It's not actually a performance metric. It's like a market share metric, so you can know how much of it you're capturing. The performance of the business ultimately is the bottom line and how much profit you're generating. But top line gives me a sense of how much market we are capturing in and amongst this market. So that's kind of always been my focus, where then we can start to drive performance once we get that critical mass. So it's just kind of adopting and trying to steal as much of the market as we can.
Yeah, and so how does your position? So you're CEO,
Managing director.
Managing director. So you get paid a salary.
Yep, get paid a salary.
And is it a good salary or?
Look, I'm not complaining about it. It's a good salary. It's definitely an under market salary. And it's probably the first time I've had this salary. But I work my ass off, and I've worked my ass off for seven and a half years.
Is it more than old mate on 144?
It'd be pretty close. but it's one of those things. You like, if you actually kind of, I didn't pay myself for the first 4 years, and I'm actually constantly always thinking where I'm not in it for this year or next year or the year after. And if I get another 40 grand or 50 grand this year, it's not going to change my life next year. So I'm constantly thinking, well, I'm always willing to sacrifice some of my remuneration for bringing in bigger roles, creating new roles, so we can continue to grow this business, because the dollar figure is not what gets me out of bed every day. It's a challenge.
Yeah, well, I suppose ultimately it's your company as well. So you're not sitting there going, yeah, man, my boss is a fucking prick.
It's my company, but I probably made a decision a couple of years ago to make it feel like it wasn't. I was kind of like, all right, I'm effectively a CEO, but managing director. I just want to make it, and having a chairman does make you feel like it's not your own company at times, which I like. That's great for me. That's what someone like me really thrives off. It adds accountability, adds direction, and I've got results that we're kind of constantly being reassessed on. So it's so whilst it is my company, I try really hard to make it feel like it's not, and I'm kind of just in my role to deliver the results that I'm putting forward.
Yeah, because I don't understand that stuff, but I've been listening to the Elon Musk book on Audible, and he's been pushed out of some companies that he set up and that he owned. Could that happen to you?
Look, if I did something drastically out of control, Rob could ultimately remove me and from the business. But
it's a crazy concept.
It's a crazy concept, but it's a concept I signed up for, and it's really helped me. Like I'm a pretty rogue, like kind of not. I'm pretty one-dimensional, but I'm also pretty sporadic and with my thoughts and things like that. So it's great to have some form of kind of direction.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of people could find you very intimidating, I suppose. So yeah, as we alluded to at the start, we spent the morning at ALH HQ and what's that? Penrose?
Otahu.
And you've got like a basketball court there. There's a fully stacked gym. There's a sauna. You cranked up the music. what was it called again? The
Panic room.
panic room over and over
Yeah.
again. And then, you know, you were doing a set of exercise, then I'm doing a set of exercise, and you're yelling out like a drill sergeant, I love exercise!
So good. It is.
And then things like, it's Thursday, brother! It's like, oh my God.
Every day's a good day, man, and exercise is like a drug. Like
Yeah.
it's me exercising in the morning is like me being at the gas tank fueling up. It's like I've got a couple of weird quirks, right? I'm a bit weird in some areas.
Mate, I've had people tell. I've never been diagnosed with anything, but I do
Neither.
think there's traces of ADHD, and I think maybe I'm on the spectrum somewhere, like a little bit Asperger's or something. But I
I've
feel
heard
like
all of
you're-
that.
Yeah, definitely. But it's intoxicating. It was a fun morning, and I really enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
it was. But
And a
I've,
lot of people must find it quite intimidating. Do you have some stuff that come along and they just don't last because they don't fit the mold?
yeah, massively. It's a high performance culture. You get in, you get stuck in, or effectively you get out, right? So, and it's not for everyone. And we do our best to try and be honest about it, but it's not for everyone. So, but you know, like my exercise and my routine, if I don't get it, like I do my best to be as aware of my quirks and chinks of the chain as possible. So, you know, if I don't get up and do a morning workout, I'm a nightmare for the rest of the day. I can't sit still. I can't focus. I've had to build a really clear, consistent infrastructure around my day in order for me to perform. And it's a creature of habit kind of a day. But it's if I didn't do that, I couldn't sit down and focus where I need to.
Yeah, being that in tune with yourself, I think it's a real powerful spot to be in, and you've found that spot really early.
Even with some of the OCD stuff, right? Like kind of like hygiene and time. Those are some things I'm pretty weird with. I just make
sorry
sure.
for pissing in your eyes, bud.
I saw that. Saw the red, the yellow truck.
Mate, it's so cold. There's no chance of doing wheeze in an ice bath.
You certainly couldn't. But you know, but that's it. It's just kind of like making sure I've got the infrastructure around me that I need to perform, and that's it. I think you know, Ella, my PA was around yesterday after dinner, and we're figuring out my first 3 months of January to April. Geez, it's hectic, right? I'm kind of away more than I am home, and it's just kind of say, all right, well, little things. Can we make sure we've got consistent stuff in and around the fridges and the branches that I'm going to be at? Making sure I've got exercise booked in, making sure I'm kind of the hotels that I'm staying at have a sauna, have a gym where I can get a little workout or something like that. And so it's that kind of orchestrated to make sure I feel like I can kind of just get in there and deliver.
Yeah, mate, it's a fascinating chapter, and we could stay on this forever, but time is limited, unfortunately. Just before we move on from this, chapter 3, and go back to chapter 1, the early years, if someone came and offered to buy the company today, what would the price be?
Not for sale.
Everything's for sale.
No, I've got no interest. These next 5 years for me are like at a minimum, right? We've kind of got a 5 to 10 year cycle, and I couldn't go and get this challenge somewhere else tomorrow if we sold it.
Okay, I suppose what I'm asking, I'll be honest with you. I'll look at you direct and ask you honestly, the Rob Fyfe way. You're 29 years old. It's a company you set up 8 years ago.
Yeah.
What would you be worth? What's your net worth?
Oh, geez, I'd be happy if I was $1 million. I don't know. I don't get caught up in that
Oh,
stuff.
that's a lot. Yeah, come on, that's
I don't know. I don't get caught up on focusing on that stuff.
yeah, it's way more than that though.
I don't know. Look, I don't get caught up on that stuff.
Because I heard a podcast you did, and you said growing up you were obsessed with two things: what people were earning or what they're worth, and
Yeah.
their height.
Yeah.
Not interested in your height, but what are you worth?
Look, I don't know. Honestly, I couldn't
5?
tell you. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, and that's not a metric that I'm constantly assessing myself on.
You must have an idea though. 10.
I don't. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. It's heck, I generally off the top of my head, I don't know. But you know, I was always interested. You know, when we got a coffee this morning, money is a metric, but the most exciting thing for me is the challenge to get to that metric. And that's, so when I talk about the 100 mil, when I talk about the 250 mil, or when we get to a 250 mil, I'm talking about 500 mil. It's not the money metric that excites me the most. I sit there and I think there's such a challenge to get to there, and the challenge I've had to get to here excites me to keep going. Yeah. And as long as I can, I'll be determined and motivated to keep pushing that boat out because I love the challenge. So that metric is almost like the last 10%, just a tick box to say, cool, we've done that. but I'm signing up for the challenge underneath, and that's what excites me the most.
Yeah, that's a nice answer. But for the workout this morning, I was walking behind you outside your apartment. That was definitely a real Louis Vuitton backpack.
Oh, I think I got that one from Hong Kong for $8.
It's not a Balinese special, I can tell. All right. Thanks. I appreciate the way you answered that. It was a very skillful answer.
Thanks.
It's an uncomfortable question, isn't it?
Oh, look, it's a question that's not overly uncommon, but it's generally not something I get too fixated on.
Okay, let's go back to the early years. So, Izzy from Gizzy. Busy Izzy from Gizzy.
Yeah.
So, Gisborne, very, very Christian house, like heavily religious household. And you're the baby of the family. Unplanned. Massive age gap, right?
Yep, big age gap. Budgie's 12 years older than me. Banjo's 10 years older than me. Rosie's 5 years older than me.
Okay. So then you came along.
Then I came along, yeah.
And, I've heard in other podcasts you've done, you talk about your relationship with your dad. Haven't you? Did you mention your relationship with your mum?
Look, I love my mum, right? Yeah. I'm a busy guy. I think that...
Busy Izzy.
Busy Izzy. I'm a busy guy. I keep in touch with my family to the best I can. I could always do a better job, but it's a really respectful relationship in and amongst my family. They know that I'm doing what I'm doing, and whatnot. But at the end of the day, it's just one of those things. I had to grow up really young, right? And that's kind of thing. So I became really independent. I wasn't necessarily someone that was dependent on an emotional attachment on anything realistically with too many people. So it's just about kind of pushing forward and getting on. I go and see my mum when I'm home. I'm just hardly home. I probably go home twice a year. So but she's a lovely lady. Bringing me up wouldn't have been easy.
Do you think by the time you came along, she was just bored of parenting?
I genuinely think that my mum, I probably came out into the world and my mum thought, oh, this is kind of my swan song. And she says to me, you were put your three older siblings together. She said, you were worse. She said, you didn't walk anywhere. It was all sprinting. It was like always flat out. So that's probably no mum or parents wish that for their last.
Yeah, and also, do you think did your older siblings sort of raise you in a way? I suppose it takes the slack off the parents a bit.
And that age gap, not that I've experienced it with I don't have children, but like I think that is a common theme in families. When you've got siblings that are 8 to 10 to 12 years older than you, they do take on some of that responsibility. So my two older siblings, I've got quite a lot to do, and it's a different relationship than I have with Rosie. Rosie's the one that's closest to me. So it's me and Rosie's is far more of a friendship. And Budgie and Banjo is far more of kind of like let's just make sure this he's in line and we check him when we need to and stuff like that. So,
yeah, and your relationship with your dad, we'll get into this in further detail in the next chapter 2, the adversity chapter. But very strict.
Yep.
Like
militant.
Yeah.
Militant.
Was he? He was a school caretaker, right?
Caretaker.
Did he have a military background?
No. It was interesting. Like. You don't know what you don't know until you leave home, and the way I was brought up, I thought it was normal, and you kind of, some of the stories I was telling you, when we're going for a walk on the coffee, it's like you think some of those things. It was a constant. The way I would describe my upbringing and my relationship with Dad, it was constantly being uncomfortable in a home environment because I should always be doing more. So it was, I never felt at ease or relaxed at home. I was never allowed to sleep in past 7 a.m. because that was teaching bad habits. That was his words. He would walk in up the porch, walk into the house. I could hear him coming because he'd have the keys on his hip. I was never allowed to be sat down when he walked in. I always had to be doing something. So I'd dart off to the kitchen, act like I was doing the dishes, and doing something. So at least when that would validate to him that I wasn't lazy. It was always about doing more, and that's ingrained to me today. And sometimes it's hard to see the woods from the trees or trees from the woods. I'm kind of like more, and sometimes to this day I just get so consumed. It's hard to pull yourself out of that and see it different. But it's just making sure you've kind of got some levers and flags to identify that.
Yeah, there's one particular story you told me. Do you want to share that? Or?
Yeah, I there's probably about 6 months. My dad would wake me up, come down the hallway, he'd like put his hand over my mouth and then block my nose. And I'd kind of basically being suffocated, right? And I'd wake up and I'd panic, and he'd kind of be like, "What are you doing? You can't be panicking. You need to learn to relax." And you kind of like, as we got to the point where over the months and stuff, I'd wake up before he'd there, and I'd act like I was like unfazed by it, and look at him and be like, "Oh, all right, beating him,
How
beating
long
him."
were you awake for? Like hours?
Just sitting there
waiting for the keys?
ready to win. It was interesting actually. Rob texted me this morning, passing on my thoughts about the 9-year thing, and he mentioned it. He said, "I'm sure your suffocating dad would be proud looking down at you."
Yeah, that's really troubling.
It's troubling to look. It was what it was. It's not something I have trauma about today, but I look back in it and I say it honestly. If I had to change anything, I wouldn't, because if it meant I could be where I am today, to have the work ethic I have, the drive and the ambition, shit, I'd do it 10 times over if it meant it. So I wouldn't. Honestly, I wouldn't change a thing.
But he wasn't like that with any of the older kids, right?
No.
So why you?
Man, I'm a splitting image of him. Like, I'm a lot like him. I've got a lot of characteristics like him. I'm a lot like him in some areas, but then I'm completely opposite in others. But I think he's just at the end of his time.
Tether with
Tether. Yeah. It's like, shit, he had 4. I was the 4th one, right? Again, I wouldn't want me to be the 4th kid if I had kids. Jeez, I'm like a live wire, right? It's kind of from the minute I'm up, I'm on. And then... and yeah, just I'd learn how to wind him up like he'd wind me up, and I was a cheeky bastard. I was I was always pushing the boundaries, just like he was trying to push mine. So
Do you think it was an element of like tough love on his part, just to
Massively.
try and put you in your place?
It was always he'd always say to me, he'd call me boy or buddy. Those are the 2 names he'd call me. And I'd be like, why are you doing this? Why are you so hard on me? Why weren't you like this with the others and stuff? Yeah, but look, boy, I don't know what we're working towards, but we're working towards something, and you'll thank me one day. One day you'll thank me for this work ethic. Never got to thank him. That's probably the one regret I've got in my life. And I look back at it and I think, geez, if I am thankful for that work ethic and that stuff. But to be being told that from the time you're 13, we just don't know what we're working for, but we're working towards something. It's like, what's he like? World War coming around?
Yeah, and he was a school caretaker, so he would have had no aspirations like you starting up a big multi-million-dollar company or anything.
Yeah, no. And he's always kind of had his brain ticking to see what was next and where he could go, but ultimately he just didn't have... And, he got married young, had kids young, so he's in a different position, right? Like, I'm 29, I've kind of got none of those responsibilities, so... I can solely focus on business and what I want to achieve in my life, where from the time he was 20, he had kids.
Yeah. Did you love him, or were you scared of him, or both?
Loved him, scared shitless of him, respected him, but wouldn't go and have a coffee with him if he was around today, And that's me being brutally honest. With all respect to my siblings, I just had a really different relationship, one that I don't long for or miss. I'm at peace with everything, and I think you go through phases in life, and you actually just have to own and take accountability. What's happened, and you can move forward. And every day's a new day, and you just got to take it like that. So that's my philosophy on it.
How do you know? Have you had any therapy or anything?
Oh, I went to a psychologist probably like 4 or 5 times, like within 2 years of his passing. But I've kind of not very good at self-regulating, and I've probably still got a bit of work to do on it. But
what?
But being able to kind of just pull myself out of situations has always been a struggle. But that's more so with work than I would with the dad stuff. And I think, it's an unpopular opinion, but when Dad passed away, there was that much tension and stress put on my life from him, and a controlling element that it was like a burden of relief. It was kind of like, shit, I can be my own person now. So whilst there was a lot of negativity and upset and a tough time, I still sit there and I think, I wouldn't be doing what I was doing today if you're still alive. And selfishly, that works for me. So that gave me peace.
Why wouldn't you be doing what you're doing today? I feel like you would. I feel like I've heard you in other podcasts, and you talk about the influence that Rob Fyfe had on your life and your dad. But I feel like you march to the beat of your own drum, and it may have been a different route to the one you've taken.
It'd definitely be a different route.
Be in the same place.
Maybe I'd end up
here or not,
place.
whether Rob was in your life or not.
Yeah, look, I'm confident in my ability that I'd end up where I want to end up, but at a different timeline probably. But I just it's hard to explain, you know. Like my sister got married. I think I would have been 19. I couldn't be seen with an alcohol drink in my hand. You know, I'll never forget when my dad saw me across the wedding and I had a Heineken in my hand. I shat myself and quickly chucked it out. Do you know what I mean? There's just such an element of like I'd be fearful of what his response would be sometimes.
Yeah, so we'll get to the adversity chapter soon, and this is where it starts to unravel a bit more about your dad. But with the benefit of hindsight now from where you're sitting as a 29-year-old man, that's done very fucking well for yourself. How much do you think of his like anger or discipline towards you was like mental health based? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like Dad was an interesting operator. Like he was almost a screw loose where it was, I don't know, how I'd describe it. If I went to war, I'd want Dad next to me, right? Because I think he'd be the guy that would clear a hall for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he was always unhinged, and it was almost like that was just part of him. Like he was just so like that. But the mental health stuff, there was definitely a deterioration of it. And for me, if I look back at it, it started from the time I was probably 12 or 13. But I don't know. You ask my family, they might say it was 5 years earlier. So, yeah, there's a lot of the mental health stuff. But it was, I've met a lot of people that encounter mental health, but he was a unique breed, that guy. Like, he was a different kettle of fish, that fella.
Yeah, 'cause you've always been so driven though, eh? Like you made the call to leave Gisborne and finish your school in Auckland. So it wasn't your parents sending you away.
No.
That was your decision, which just seems like you had this sort of instinct all the way through your life. Was part of that like to get away from your dad so you could wake up without being suffocated?
I had to get away from my dad. Like, or me and Dad probably would have one of us would have ended up doing something silly, you know, like. That's how much tension there was in the relationship. Yeah. It was getting to the point where I'm off or one of us are going to end up in hospital. And it would have been me because, look, Snake's got bigger arms than me, right?
Yeah, you think it would get to that age where, I was from a spanking household.
Yeah.
But it was always correctional, and it was always, Dad would always say, oh, this is going to hurt me more than what's going to hurt you. But it gets to the point where you're 14, 15, where it's like your dad can't put you over the bed and give you a whack with the belt anymore. You'd think it'd start to treat you differently, but that wasn't the case.
No, it probably started to level up more so. And yeah, it was one of us had to do something, and for me it was moving away, and like, you know, the drive and the competitiveness. I think if I had to describe myself to best help you or people understand, I hate losing more than I love winning. That would be my description. So. Winning comes first for me, right? And then I can have fun after. But losing for me is almost traumatic, right? I freaking hate it. So there's such a drive to deliver a result in everything I do. Like, whenever me and my sister would go around the corner to the dairy, I'd always race her there or race to the gate. Who's going to win? This or that. It was always to that next point. So there's a big underlying drive and ambition. And that was bred through my dad. Like, he would say to me, oh, look, you know, your sister's doing better than you here. And I'm like, well, she's 10 years older than me. Like, of course.
She's a woman.
But it was constantly like that. And I'll never forget when I, like, first bet my brother at a running race. I was, like, 14, and the first time I bet him, because he'd come and help me do my fitness. Banjo's always been incredibly supportive when it was football, when it was business. But I'll never forget the first time I bet him, and I was like, that's great. And then I remember Dad saying, well, you should have beat him by more. You know, so it's kind of like, even when you got to that point, there was something else. And that competitiveness still lives and breathes inside of me every day.
Is that something you need to work on? Like, I've heard you say you avoid playing board games where it's a chance, like Yahtzee or something, because it's like, come on.
Yeah, well, yeah, come on, absolutely. But, like, I think for me, I'm hopelessly me. And I love, you know, as Rob said to me, you know, he always said to me, man, as long as you can get up every day and look at the fella in the mirror and love him, worry less, you know, and have a great day. So, look, yeah, there's going to come a time when that competitive edge slows down naturally, as humans do. But I don't want to curb that. I want a future family or something to be that reason, and I just want to go all gas, no brakes until that time comes. So whilst I've kind of got the testosterone, I've got the energy, I just don't want to stop the momentum.
But you're always going to have the testosterone and the energy, I think.
I'm always going to have that, but there's going to come a time where I believe, I could be wrong, probably everyone who knows me well probably thinks I'm wrong. There's going to come a time where it's kind of going to, I believe there'll come a time where actually I don't need to fight that fight. I normally would have, but I'm just going to simmer down and kind of do that. I've got a good friend, a guy called Kurt. He's 10 years older than me. I love the relationship I have with him. He's done incredibly well. He's a successful guy and he's a really great guy. And I kind of almost compare where I am now. It's like I'm the young bull. Not that he's the old bull, but I kind of think my energies towards a lot of things, I know that he would have been at this age, but he's not so much now. He's got 3 kids, him and his wife and whatnot. So I look at that and I think there's going to be a time for that, but that time's not right now. So I want to go with the momentum.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So you moved to Auckland, finish your school education here.
Yep.
Off your own back.
Yep.
Where are you staying? You billeted out? Who are your
So I got
family members?
billeted out with a family. Then they bloody kicked me out after a couple of months. Then I went and lived with the Cornter family. Phenomenal family. Literally welcomed me in and treated me like their own. I shared a room with my friend called Chunky, who we're still incredibly close with today. He comes and does our Wednesday workouts at HQ with the team, which is cool. So I lived with them, and then I went and did my building apprenticeship, started my building apprenticeship after school, and hooked into that. So
yeah, while you're playing soccer, so soccer or football was your main purpose.
I took a year off football actually,
okay,
just so I could. When I started the apprenticeship, it was just too tough on the body, and you're doing long hours, you're lifting lots of stuff, and I never really liked football. I just liked winning, and I was kind of so it was.
Why didn't you play a solo sport where all the variables?
I didn't have a choice. I was kind of brought up to play football, right? That was the kind of thing.
But a team sport must have annoyed you immensely.
I was the worst teammate. I was the worst teammate. I wouldn't want to be my teammate, and that's me being honest. It actually got to the point where I'd burn relationships because it was just like that competitive. It's kind of like,
So you're 20 years old. You're building a apprentice. You're playing a bit of football, and then you get a phone call from your sister about your dad.
Yeah.
So this would have been 9 years ago today.
9 years ago today. Yeah. It's incredible to look back and think that it's been 9 years.
Yeah. Is it hard to go back there to that day or?
No, look. It's not like I've gone over that day so many times. I think today's more about my family than it is for me. They're the family. They still have to live in Gisborne. Well, they don't have to, but they live in Gisborne. That's where the memories are with Dad. That's where the memories are for them. They've got great memories with Dad. I don't have many memories up in Auckland. So my next chapter was my own chapter. So I've been able to create my own life and merge into a family of my own up here, which I love, care and respect, and it's vice versa. So today's for me is more about my family. I know that I'm okay. These days are going to happen, and each year it gets easier. But I think today I kind of wake up and I kind of feel for them.
Yeah. So we started with chapter 3, which is Izzy Whitley, the entrepreneur. Then we went back to chapter 1, which is like the childhood, which sort of set the foundations of the man you are today, which takes us now to the second chapter and the final chapter, I suppose, the adversity chapter, which, all these things, you look back and they all sort of have made you the person and the man you are today. So, take us back to that 9 years ago today. So you get the phone call from, what are you doing? What are you doing that day? You're on site?
It was a Sunday. I'd just done crate day with my football team. And I'd just gone and had a pizza with my girlfriend at the time. And that's where I got the phone call. I was on Milford Beach, I'll never forget.
So like afternoon?
Evening, yeah. Kind of 5 or 6 o'clock. So for me, whilst today's the anniversary, crate day for me is probably the tougher day. Because the memories, like as awful as it sounds, I wake up and I think I was hooking into my first beer this time 9 years ago and my dad was already dead. Right, and I just didn't find out until that evening. So that for me is it's like, I'm getting up and going about my day when I didn't even know for so long, right? So I was in Milford Beach, got the phone call, went to the Cornter's house.
So you didn't have a hunch or anything. Some people say they felt something in their gut was wrong.
I didn't believe it.
You were just hammered.
I was steamed.
Yeah,
Mate,
okay.
I could hardly, like, I was absolutely rotten drunk.
So your sister calls him. What does she say?
It's interesting. Up until probably a month ago, we'd spoke about it, and she said the phone call she had with me seems completely different to what I relay, because I just remember her telling me, "Hey, Dad's been found dead," and I was like, "Oh," and she tells me there's 8 sentences before, but that's what I remember. So
well, you had a whole crate. I'll go with her.
yeah, good point.
She's a more reliable witness.
Yeah. So that happened, and then I went to the Cornters to be around kind of them, and they were incredibly supportive and helpful, and Paulie drove me to the Mount to then be picked up from Banjo, and then drove home, and then it was with the family. And
That must have been a weird day, because it's obviously you're half cut for starters, but
Yeah.
I suppose you sober up very quickly when you get a phone call like that.
yeah, you try to.
But also you have the complexities of your personal relationship with your father.
Yeah. I had no idea it was suicide until I got home.
What were you thinking?
I thought he'd got cheeky to the wrong person and just got dusted up. I honestly thought someone had killed him. That's what I thought. I was like, he's got cheeky to the wrong guy, or he's thrown his temper at the wrong person, and they weren't having it today. Banjo told me that it was a head injury as to what the cause of the death was. So that's why I was kind of like, someone's, donked him or something like that. So then it wasn't until I got home, and I was like, Banjo was quite blasé about telling me or talking about it, and he just kept saying, I just don't want to know. I just don't want to know. I'm like, I want to know. Like, what the hell's going on? I pulled my sister aside. I said, Bushy, you've got to tell me what's gone on. And she pulled me into a room, and she said, look, we found a note. And I was kind of like, wow. It was just, from that point, I was actually really disappointed, like, in him, because I was kind of like, this guy has, in my opinion, trained my mind, trained my psyche to be as strong, strict, disciplined as I can be, and to weather any storm. And the storm being Dad. I weathered his storm for a long time, but he couldn't weather his. And that's how I thought at the time. I didn't dive in to understand mental health, but I was kind of like, what a dick. Like, you're not practicing what you've preached into me my whole life. You've called it quits when it got tough. Obviously, that's now not what I think. Yeah. But at the time, that's what I was kind of thinking.
Also, you're very young at the time too, so little understanding.
And so now that I'm aware of a lot more, and I've educated myself on what mental health can do, I definitely don't feel like that. But at the time, that's how I felt. And I was like, I was just pissed off. I remember all the family around, and we kind of said, oh, what are we going to do? When's the funeral going to be? Is it going to be on? I said, it was a Sunday. I said, let's have it on the Wednesday. I've got surgery for my shoulder on the Thursday. I want to get back to Auckland. I want to keep living my life and keep moving forward. That's generally the chat I remember having in front of everyone.
So so did you allow yourself to grieve, or?
I didn't allow myself to grieve, but then when everything happened with my heart, I was in hospital for a week, and I just bawled my eyes out for a week.
Yeah, this is the next bit of the adversity chapter. Yeah, we will get to that. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot over a very concentrated period of time.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did the note say? Was it much?
Oh,
was it
look,
short,
out of
brief?
respect to the family, I won't relay it, but it said enough to kind of reiterate what position he was in and how he was feeling, and it was actually more of an apology than anything.
Yeah, and we can't get into this due to various laws, but you told me earlier how he went about it, and it's a particularly violent and brutal way.
You're not going to survive that. Yeah,
it's not a cry for help at all.
No.
Did your mum have any idea? Did anyone in the family had any idea?
Everyone knew that it was suicide as soon as they found out about it.
No, but did anyone know he was like struggling mentally?
Yeah, well, as soon as people found out or got told that Dad had passed away, they all thought suicide. I was just the only one that didn't think that.
And so when you found that out, did it give you more of sort of empathy or understanding of like how hard he was growing up? Like a lot of it probably came from a place of anger, maybe brought on by mental health?
Nah, because I almost thought he bloody got me to the brink of having my own mental health. Right? Dad-induced mental health. So I just felt hard done by, man. Like I did. I was kind of like, what a dick. Like you've pushed me to the point of breaking point at least once a week for my life. Well, not my life, probably my last 4 years at home, 5 years at home, and you tell me how tough you have to be, and that's the way you go about it. So I just felt really ripped off.
Well, mentally, you're like a white David Goggins. Like you are.
I wish.
You are hardcore. You're if David Goggins and Cameron Haynes had a baby, you'd be the product. How are you with like vulnerability and being like open and honest with people you love about your position? Like, I suppose what I'm asking in a roundabout sort of way is like, are you scared that one day you could end up in the same sort of
I'd be lying if I said that I didn't or haven't thought that, and I probably only think that when people bring that up because they're like, oh, you're worried that that's going to be your path. But I look at the infrastructure I put around myself every day, and I give myself. I think if I was going to have mental health issues, I would have had it by now. And I'm not trying to jinx myself or whatever. And I know it's not a choice, but I do everything I can to counteract mental health issues. Right? I look after myself. I exercise, I do the best I can, and whilst I'd consider myself not a selfish person, I'm incredibly selfish on my time and what I need to be the best version of myself. So I'm not worried. I just want to keep looking after myself and being positive. But being vulnerable, I'm always open and happy to be vulnerable when I need to be. But it's kind of, if someone grazes their knee, you can make it out to be something it's not, or you can kind of address it for a graze and look after it and go from there. People like to make some things worse.
Oh, 100%. I think there's a lot of people that thrive on the victim mentality.
I hate victim mentality.
Yeah, likewise. What do you think you'll be like if you're lucky enough to be a dad one day? Like you think, because you're very hard on yourself. You have high expectations for your staff and your team around you.
Yep.
You'll definitely be a more compassionate dad than what your dad was.
Dude,
you can't get away with suffocating your kids.
No, I won't be doing that. Look, man, I think it's about probably for me getting some of that competitiveness out, getting that stuff out before that time comes. Right, I'm 29, like to have a kid or two by the time I'm 35, and I can't wait. I've got nephews and nieces. They're the light to any day, right? And they're phenomenal, and it actually really gives me a great energy lift seeing them. So I can't wait to be a dad whenever that time comes. I'm not in a rush, but I think it's I know what I don't want to be, and I know what I want to be, and look, I've got no doubt it's going to be a lot more challenging than what people make it out. Well, it's going to be harder than people say it is, but I'm aware of that, and I'm ready for it. I think being honest with myself and knowing the dad I ultimately want to be when the time comes, but that's just not now. Yeah.
So your dad passes, you get out of Gizzy, straight back to your life in Auckland, bury yourself in your soccer.
Yeah.
Just train hard, work hard. Part of that, I suppose, a psychologist might say, was like a coping mechanism.
Massively as a coping mechanism. Yeah.
And then what happened with your heart?
So today I've got hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, right? So I had the whole ECGs, got rushed in the hospital, said, you've had several heart attacks, then I'm in hospital, you get diagnosed. I didn't actually get diagnosed on the spot because they just didn't know what was going on. They thought I had some elements of cardiomyopathy, but they also thought I had some elements of athlete's heart, which is kind of like triathletes and whatever.
Oh, yeah,
so it swells.
I've been told I had that as well, like an enlarged heart, which you think's a good thing. It's like a muscle. You train
that's
it,
what
it
I
gets
thought.
bigger.
So, but what then we ended up uncovering is that I actually have deficiencies in my heart functionality, and that what determines cardiomyopathy, which is just a heart disease. Well, not just, it's a heart disease. And hypertrophic is from overtraining. So I live with that every day. I've got a heart disease. I like I was explaining to you, it's a bit more than a rolled ankle, but I that's how I'd describe it, right? You've got it. Some days if you walk on it too much, next day it's going to be a bit sore. If I push the boundary too much, I'm not very good at regulating when I should push and pull.
Oh, no shit.
and I kind of think, shit, I've pushed the boat here. I need to have a bit of a slower week or a holiday. It can be a bit in between when I get those breaks.
We had a sauna this morning, and saunas are fabulous for everything to do with the heart. But I do wonder about 3 minutes in an ice bath.
yeah. But there's, I'm just not gonna. I'm not gonna let it. I'm not gonna be beholden to it. Like, Never. I'm not going to use it as an excuse as to why I can't do something, but I need to. I do. I need to. I'd be as sensible as I can with it. I could always be better with it, but my life's fast paced, and I need to be moving at pace, and that requires exercise. And I think that's the thing. It's a catch-22. If I do too much, then my heart swells up again. Then I'll go to my next appointment. So I have to get kind of 6 to 12 month checkups, and they go and put me on this treadmill, and then I do a MRI scan and a ultrasound, and they tell me if my heart's swollen and stuff like that. So if it's swollen, they have to slow down. So it's quite a scary concept. My heart basically is pumps up, pumps down. It swells up and unswells. And the challenge I have is once it starts to go to swell, if I can't reduce it, then it will just keep growing, and that's when there starts to be a bit more.
So are you on meds? You on like beta blockers, or you got a pacemaker, or?
Look, I'm meant to be, but I'm a nightmare with remembering to take them. So look.
Why don't you? I feel like you sort of almost say this is a badge of honor, like you're not.
No, it's
taking the
definitely not a badge of
medication,
honor. Jeez, no, it's not that, because I take blood thinners, and it does make it actually does interrupt my day. Like if I was on them now, I'd get out of here and I'd have to get up slowly, and my next 5 steps I'd have to be careful because I'd probably end up on the couch. So it is quite light here. It's definitely not a badge of honor, and I get it, but I kind of think because the last time I went, it was the first time I'd had functional improvement in my heart for 7 years, and I put that down to sauntering. Some people roll their eyes, but I'm like, that's the only change I made. So for me,
sauna feels good, and the scientific benefits are there.
Yeah. So for me, that's kind of it.
Yeah. So take us back to that diagnosis. So you're in hospital. You're a young guy. Your dad passed away a couple of years earlier.
I'm in hospital because I'm in the cardio ward, right? I'm the only guy without white hair, right? It was awful. So I got all these old people.
If Rob Fyfe's listening to this, there is nothing wrong with white hair.
The silver fox. I'm in this ward. There's a bunch of old people, and I'm sitting here thinking, what am I doing in here? And because there was so much ambiguity and uncertainty on what actually was the case, I actually checked myself out of hospital without being told. My mum came up and my brother came up, and I just said, guys, I'm getting out of here. They're like, no, Izzy, don't check yourself out. And I thought, we're not going to find the answer out tomorrow. We're not going to find out next week. I'm checking myself out of hospital. No, don't do it. So I end up checking myself out of hospital and kind of just going back over time and kind of working back up to actually what the issue was and stuff like that. So it was I knew there's a problem, and it was just about making sure I tried to go. So I was sick of crying. I was just in the hospital crying about Dad, and I was kind of like,
so you managed to sort of park it or bury it until that point, and then it all sort of... So it was a combination of you for your own predicament and for your dad?
Yeah, it was a bit of that, but I didn't get out of there because I was... Probably answer that wrong. I didn't get out of there because I was sick of crying about that. I got out of there because I just feel like we weren't making any progress. And I thought, what's sitting in here with tubes and things stuck to me, feeling like I'm about to die, going to do? When I can go and live my life and go to a specialist appointment in 3 months, and I'll know more then than when I will now. And that was my mentality, which is unorthodox.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, you don't want to live your life in cotton wool, though, don't you?
No,
what sort
no
of
way.
Life is that?
Yeah.
But then you do. Okay, so you sort of take the expert advice.
Yeah.
And then pick and choose bits of it.
Yeah, I'm getting better at not picking and choosing.
Are you getting better?
Yeah,
at it?
I am. And I'm still young, I guess, in the grand scheme. But your body, you've only got one body, so it's kind of just learning and treating it a bit better than I did the year before.
Yeah, and you've recently just had a relationship breakup. You're engaged and you've just broken up. You've been through so much in your life, and I suppose with the business skills you've developed over the last 9 years, you've become very good at having tough conversations, which I suppose is a professional skill which carries over to your private life.
Oh, dude, I wouldn't consider my communication approach the best way. But look, breakups are breakups, man. They happen. She was a cool chick. You just got different stages and at different frequencies and at different rev counts, right? And whatever happens in life, every day is a new day. You just got to get one foot after the other and keep pushing. And I think...
Do you allow yourself to mope for a bit? So
this
is a big thing, like a relationship breakup.
I was sick for a week.
Yeah.
So I was kind of stuck in bed. So it was actually really good. Kind of had a breather, had to think about things and just thought, actually, where do I need to be better next time round? And I love self-reflection. I love being accountable for myself and knowing what could and could have been different. And it's just about going forward from there and in the most respectful way possible, right? But and you know, I don't say this in a spiteful way, but for me, no day's tougher than putting your dad in the ground in a coffin. So I guess my emotional capacity has been stretched far beyond where I'd wish that to be anyone. So you kind of have tougher days and you do have tough days and there's always a reference point to think, actually, if I can come back from that. And that's actually often an anchor point for me in a lot of things. If you can't actually, I've had that day, let's keep going, you know. Tomorrow's a new day. Get up, get after it. Only forward, one direction. That's the way I look at it.
I think that's probably a good place to end it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been an accelerator. You're a busy guy. I'm not a busy guy. You're a very busy guy. Busy Izzy from Gizzy.
There we go.
But these are all chapters that would be worthy of being their own podcast. Maybe we dive deeper another time. But
Yeah, for sure.
man, you're inspiring. You're an inspiring guy to be around. Just by being around you, you want to do better and do more and push yourself further.
Cool. I appreciate it, man. It's been awesome to catch up, and I hope you enjoyed the morning.
Yeah, you're off to Vegas tonight for a friend's birthday party.
Yep.
Yeah, my advice to you: don't gamble over there because the house usually wins.
I'm quite impulsive nature, so I try and stay away from that stuff.
All right, hey, Izzy, you're a great New Zealander. Can't wait to see what you do next with ALH and whatever other business ventures you're involved with.
Cool. Cheers, mate. Thanks heaps, Dom.